welcome to HTO Football listeners. I'm back with Andrew today, so we're reunited. So the co-hosts are both with you, but we're really excited today because we are both joined by a bit of a hero of ours, aren't we, Andrew?
Yeah, childhood hero of ours. Yeah, I mean, I was looking forward to driving back home for this one.
Absolutely. We are joined by ex-Leicester, ex-Arsenal striker, and obviously now found with a commentator's microphone for Sky Sports, the one and only Alan Smith. Alan, how are you? Are you well?
I'm good, thanks, Tom. Yeah, not too bad at all.
Good stuff. Good stuff. How have you found return to the season this year with everything? Did you get the same excitement to get back at football, given everything that's 2020 has thrown at us?
Well, it is difficult to get as excited. It feels weird every time I drive into a ground, and even weirder when I drive away 5 minutes after the final whistle. No traffic. I mean, it's nice in a way, but you think, wow, have I just commentated on a Premier League match there?
No, so especially when you get thrillers.
It's obviously not the same. I always have the crowd effects turned up in my cans so that you're not hearing your own voice echoing around the ground. But roll on fans coming back in. That's all I can say.
No, absolutely. I think I think the fan effects have got better as well. I found. I remember when they first did on the first few matches, they'd like a player would shoot and it'd be like a really delayed and the ball would already be being picked up by the goalkeeper for a goal kick. But it's actually really quite accurate now. It's getting pretty good.
And you get some boos as well on that, so it's good. Yeah, absolutely.
A few boos when bad decisions or a VAR and we're waiting 5 minutes. As we have, it's no surprise to listeners. Andrew and I are Arsenal fans. So we are going to, if we can, just delve a little bit, take you back, if we may, to your signing for Arsenal and what would follow in the seasons afterwards. I wanted to sort of draw the parallel, if I can. You joining a team that was kind of being shaken up under George a little bit. It was and so first of all, how was that move for you, and what sort of dressing room did you find when you arrived?
Well, when I originally heard of Arsenal's interest, you're obviously taking more notice of the team then. I mean, I've played against them for Leicester in the season before, but you're looking at the young kids coming through the youth ranks, Tony and Mickey Thomas, Rocky, Merce, all those boys. And you're thinking that something quite good is about to happen here because you see that they were talented lads. And George Graham had won the Littlewoods Cup in his first season. And it just seemed like something was bubbling there, something very promising. There's so much luck in being a footballer, joining clubs at the right time. And I was really fortunate that I did join Arsenal at the right time, and such an honour to get shown round the old ground, Highbury, around the marble halls, and the oak panel boardroom and all the rest of it, and going out on that pitch. To join such a famous old club, it was just such a proud moment for me.
Absolutely. No, I very much still miss Highbury. Miss those marble halls. It was a special place, but still a special club. But yeah, it was a very special place, Highbury. So to join that must have been pretty fun. And do you think any parallels with the current Arsenal setup? We're not so much in terms of, but standing, obviously not being successful in the last sort of decade, which we hadn't been largely in the 80s. As you said, we'd picked up the 87 League Cup and obviously picked up the FA Cup last year under Mikel Arteta, another young manager. Somewhat unproven. Obviously, George was coming from, was it Millwall, I believe, or certainly low league D. So, slightly unproven. Hopefully, there's some success to come that you guys experienced.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some ground to make up, hasn't he?
Absolutely.
Obviously finishing 8th last year, and there's a big gap between themselves and Man City and Liverpool. But things are heading in the right direction. There's no doubt about that. He's got his hands tied to a certain extent with a lack of funds available, but he's having to be creative, get players out before he can bring some in. But the Thomas Partey one was an excellent bit of business, I think. So it's going to be a gradual thing whereby he'll take a few transfer windows to get the squad that he wants because of the financial situation.
Yeah.
But he's clearly a coach of great talent. He can improve players on that training ground, which we've seen already.
Absolutely.
Talking of managers and obviously their impact, if we can obviously milk a bit of the 89 season, if we go back to that pre-season, Alan, the 88-89 pre-season, what was the talk what were the targets for that year?
I think, yeah, to have a good push at the title. The previous season we'd fallen short by some distance. I think we'd had a good spell, but we were never really ready for a title push. I mean, we beat Wimbledon on the opening day, didn't we? 5-1. So you're thinking, yeah, okay, decent start. Things build, things build as the results come along. Confidence builds. Liverpool, of course, were always the team to beat, and you're thinking, if we finish a point above them, we're going to win the title. As it was, we didn't
even need the point.
We finished a goal above them, wasn't it? I think.
Silly it was.
Yeah, it was a gradual thing, and then of course towards the end we thought we'd blown it with a defeat at home to Derby and then the draw to Wimbledon, but it wasn't quite the fact.
Well, I was going to say, obviously you've got almost for slightly younger listeners, and you had almost the United of the 90s, Liverpool was the 80s. It wasn't just the team who'd most recently won the league. It was a dominating team, wasn't it? It was a dominating club, experienced serial winners. And Arsenal, we weren't in the dressing room, were there? It's not like you were surrounded by players in the Arsenal dressing room who've been there, done that, won the league title year in, year out. And I did want to get your take that we had we being Arsenal, sorry listeners, Arsenal had a fantastic sort of opening to that season. Liverpool traditionally-ish, slowish, sort of sluggish start, and and then you really start hitting their straps. But when we did start to throw a few points away, and it has to be said, it's not like there was a dramatic crash around January, February, March. It was more that Liverpool went on a fantastic run, didn't they?
Yeah.
They won sort of 7 or 8, 9 in a row or whatever it was. But then, as you said, there was that Derby game, and then that Wimbledon 2-2 after thrashing them on the opening day, and then Wimbledon 2-2 at Highbury. In your heart of hearts, when you looked around that dressing room, did you feel the players thought it was gone?
Yeah, I remember doing a lap of honour, being the last home game of the season, to thank the fans. And there was a feeling within Highbury that night that we'd given it our best shot, but it was not going to be quite good enough. So we were all really deflated going back into that dressing room. And of course, George Graham was as well. I think the chairman came down, which he always did just at the end of the season, to congratulate us on a good campaign. But George wasn't giving up on it. He said, get your heads up. We've still got a chance here. I mean, he was the biggest factor in it all, really, the way he led from the front and the advice he gave, the targets he set. So as disappointed as we were driving home that night, you come back into training, and obviously after the Liverpool-West Ham game, the mathematics are done and you know what the challenge is. Then you lift your heads again and you start buzzing again, knowing that, we've got a slim chance. We weren't thinking we were certain to do it, but we thought we've got a fighting chance here, and that lifted us all.
I'll tell you, one guy that did give up was the guy in Fever Pitch. He definitely gave up, didn't he? With a couple of games left, throwing his toys out the pram with those results against, obviously, Wimbledon. Was it the Norwich game as well?
Derby.
Derby.
We stuffed Norwich a couple of weeks before, and we thought, we're going to win it now. It's going to be fine, and then we throw it away.
So obviously, the gaffer George. I mean, even at half time, Alan, at Anfield, it's 0-0, and you're in the dressing room, and he's completely content with that, right? With the players in the dressing room, were they singing from that hymn sheet, or players looking around thinking?
Well, we'd hardly had an effort on goal. Bolden had the one header, but that was about it. I mean, Liverpool hadn't had much either. It was a
strange game,
pretty awful game in terms of football. There was very little played that night. It was absolutely 100 mile an hour. The ball didn't sit still for a minute. There were challenges crashing in left, right, and centre. And players, just getting back up, pushing themselves down and getting on with it. That's how much the game's changed. But I think the lads were downcast because we hadn't created much at all. But George, again, he lifted us and said, this is going perfectly to plan, lads. It's all about the clean sheet at the moment, because if we'd have conceded, we'd have had to have got 3, and it was good night. But he was buoyant because we had kept the clean sheet, and he just wanted us to push on a bit more in the second half. Get Nigel and Lee pushed on, get some service into the box, and he was confident we'd do it.
That's his job to say that, but actually, in hindsight, he's probably right, because if we had started that game cracking and we'd got an early goal, bit of luck or whatever it may be, or a great move, Liverpool might then just suddenly realise, well, we've got to play tonight, lads. We've got to actually, we can't sit in, we can't just make it a bit rough. We've got to actually play our stuff, and then they might just play us off the park or pick us off and get a couple of goals. I think genuinely, by not obviously not conceding, but not even scoring in the first half, probably means that they can just think status quo at half time. And they can come out and just think same again, it's fine. We're 45 minutes from the title. Happy days. And then obviously, famously, just gone 50 odd minutes, 52, 53 minutes.
52, yeah.
52 minutes. Yourself pops up on a little nodded goal. Do you honestly, people say they remember moments. Can you still remember it?
I can remember it, yeah, because we did practice that particular free kick routine many, many times at London Colney. So we knew it back to front, off by heart. Didn't work much in matches at all. I can't remember another match when we scored from it. But there was me, Tony and Baldy, and normally it would be Baldy peeling around the back. We were stood in a line, and me and Tony would make dashes into the box. Maybe I'd make a near post one. As it turned out, Tony, I think, kind of ignored the script and just threw himself at the ball and created a diversion. And I've just sneaked in and glanced it home and got a clean touch on it. I've kind of barged into Steve Staunton on the follow through and gone straight up to the corner where the away fans were to milk the moments, to celebrate. And then you turn round and there's a big clutch of red shirts around the ref pointing to, God knows what. The ref, the linesman, he's flagged for offside. He didn't touch it. All that. So immediately thinking, we've got no chance here. He's going to disallow it, because they had about 6 players crowning around the ref who went up to the linesman, and we just had David O'Leary. He was our only spokesman. So you're thinking, at the home of Liverpool, with all those fans baying for the ref to disallow it, he was going to crumble. But when he pointed to the centre circle, we couldn't believe it. I mean, there was nothing wrong with the goal, as you can see on the replays. I was well onside, and I certainly got a touch. I mean, that's the most commonly asked question: did you get a touch? But it was a firm one. I just helped it on its way. So, yeah, I mean, then just the game tilts on its head, doesn't it? Completely. I mean, it was noisy in there from the off, but it was even noisier then. It was kind of sheer panic from the Liverpool fans, and our lot in the corner going absolutely ballistic. So, quite an amazing moment.
At what moment do you think it's done? Do you think we can't? I mean, because as a football fan watching, I don't even think it's getting late until suddenly it gets to sort of 85, and in that last 5 or 6 minutes, you think, it just disappears. And obviously, this went up into the 90 plus. But as a player on the pitch, it's not like we then create loads of chances, is there? I mean, didn't Mickey had one other chance, and he kind of just sort of poked at it not very well. And it was a really tame effort, frankly. And we'll let him off for what happens later. But was there a moment on the pitch where you thought, it's done now? We've come so close, but it's done.
Well, I mean, the crowd had started whistling on about 80 minutes, I think. There was no clock in the ground. So we didn't know. We kept looking over to the bench, and they were giving us hand signals as to how long was left. You never know for certain, but you thought with the whistle was going to go at any second, really. And I know Lee Dixon went over to the ref and said, "How long left?" And he went, "It's done, Lee, it's done." Well, it wasn't quite done, because there was still chance for, Kevin Richardson to nick the ball off John Barnes and give it back to John Lukic. But yeah, I mean, I did think, when Lukey got it, this is our last move now. We've got to score from this.
Was that a bit of a,
so it turned out.
Was that a bit of a slow motion moment, Alan? Those sort of 10-15 seconds from the Lukic pass.
Yeah, when it seemed to go into slow motion, I know it's a cliche, but it did, was when I knocked it through to Mickey, and we can't do anything to help him. He's 15 yards ahead of me and everybody else, really, and all we can see is him going through on goal. I'm jogging behind. You can see the red shirts converging from left and right, and it just looks certain that they're going to get a tackle in on him, and you're just begging for him to get his shot away. But we all knew Mickey being such a laid-back character. He was stubborn as well. He'd never do anything before he wanted to do it, and because of that, he was exactly the right man in the right place at the right time. He was waiting for Grobler to commit himself, and before he dinked it. But yeah, it was one of those moments where it seems to take an eternity. Yeah. It really did.
No matter how many times I've seen that back, I still think he's not going to let go of it early enough. It's one of those things you still think, well, you need to go now. You need to shoot, and it still really feels like it's going to verge. And you've got Nigel Winterburn flying up on the left, and it's just etched there. How was I wanted to touch on it? Sort of obviously that season brought the Hillsborough disaster and the tragedy. How were the people of Liverpool in the immediate aftermath of the win? Because obviously I probably imagine that the rest of the country, if you weren't an Arsenal fan, would have happily seen the title sit and stay in Anfield and all of that. Did you ever feel that you couldn't not fully enjoy it, but fully grasp the moment on a pure football level? Because obviously from a human level, what happened would sort of outstripped anything else.
Well, I mean, all the Liverpool people were fantastic, very gracious in defeat. I mean, the Kop gave us a standing ovation. A lot of fans stayed in the ground after the final whistle. People on the pitch, the stewards, the policemen, people behind the scenes. When I went into the players' lounge, I think I was one of the few people that had family there, or at least people that went in the player. They were the only ones in the players' lounge. My wife and our two, or my wife, I've been married a year, and our two friends, they'd come up and they'd actually got there only just before half time because of the traffic. Yeah. No, everybody was very gracious in defeat, because what had happened, obviously with Hillsborough, it did put football in perspective. Yeah. So as gutted as they all were, there were bigger things at play, and I mean, the Liverpool lads weren't themselves that night. They'd been through so much in terms of attending funerals and, the psychological damage it would have done. We'd pay a lot more attention to that now, wouldn't we? But plus the situation where you can go into a game and lose 1-0 and you're still going to win the league. That does funny things to your mind. But no, it was well, they were great to us, and I think all the lads, they would never forget the reaction. A couple of the Liverpool lads, I think it was John Barnes or whatever, brought in their champagne. You enjoy it, lads. So it was great from that point of view.
Yeah, I think football, like you said, the human cost is so much greater than any sport, but it equally can be a really strong and powerful tool, football, for uniting places, people, and clearly clubs. I did want to get your take on what could not happen now because of the world's media and social media. But that journey back to London, you end up in a snooker club, then you end up celebrating with fans from our Arsenal. And that just can't happen now, can it? That's how, and I think that detachment that a lot of fans feel for their clubs, it changed when we've launched the Premier League and the superstardom and like I said, the launch of social media and media and the internet. You can't have that focus now. But that must have been special to actually go back to North London and enjoy it. Back at Highbury.
It was. I don't know who had organised it, but somebody piped up and said, "Yeah, we've got something fixed. We're going to go back to this place in Southgate." it was amazing, and I think that's why a lot of fans have got so much affection for those days, because supporters were closer to the players. We'd go to the Player of the Year and just mingle with the fans. A lot of them we knew by name. They were always there. Waiting for you outside Highbury, and so it was great. I mean, it was a blur, even the cameras were there, weren't they? Obviously it was captured on film, so we spilt out of there God knows what time. At
least it's the last game of the season, so you didn't have to get up in a couple of days for another match,
well, no. And I remember actually that we had a barbecue at our house, and all the lads came around on the Saturday night. So we'd had the Friday night. Saturday night they all came round, and then the Sunday we had the open top bus ride. So we were lagging, really, some more than others. I think Tony was suffering particularly. But what a weekend! And then I actually had to report for England on the Monday or the Tuesday, along with Mickey Thomas, I think. I don't know if Rocky was there, but I remember the England lads saying, Terry Butcher said, I jumped up so high in my hotel bedroom that night and I headed the lampshade and all sorts. He said, I was made up for you, lads. So it was nice in a way to meet up with England and get the reaction of players from other clubs.
different perspectives. What followed over the next 2 or 3 years for Arsenal up until the 93? Well, I'll talk about 94 as well. Well, I won't say sustained success, but obviously another title followed a couple of years later, a couple of seasons later, in a brilliant team, and I think often overlooked team. That one, only losing that one game, and there's that famous almost invincible piece. There's that second league title, cup double in 93. So obviously a great period for your career, and I imagine some many high times there as well in general.
Well, yeah, I mean, the 91 title win, we were the more rounded team then, I think. We'd obviously had the experience. The boys were still together who'd won the title. And then when Anders Limpar came in, David Seaman was in there. And he was a step up from John Lukic, as good as Lukey was. Dave was a brilliant goalkeeper, wasn't he? Just letting 18 goals that year. But no, I don't think we do get quite the credit. Having just lost the one game, lost that one to Chelsea, so we're still annoyed about that. Yeah, we were good that year. We were good, and of course the circumstances. We won the league after Liverpool had lost at Nottingham Forest, and we weren't even on the pitch. So it was a bit of an anticlimax, certainly compared with '89. But it was still very satisfying, because just to do it once, you'd be regarded as one season wonders, but to do it again like that, it showed what a good team we were. And I remember the newspapers predicting that we'd go on and dominate English football for the next 10 years. The way that the media do, they thought that about Man City. They're saying it about Liverpool now, but you can never say for certain.
No, and then no one was going to go and dominate the 90s. Oh, unfortunately, it wasn't Arsenal, but someone did a little bit. You obviously then enjoyed the cup success, but Ian Wright came, obviously a phenomenal striker to the club. One of another boyhood hero of ours. But therefore, your role slightly changed in the team. Would that be fair to say a little bit? Over those 2 or 3 years. However, we did want to talk about 1994 because let's be honest, one blight on any Arsenal fans' copybook is slightly the fact that our lack of European success. However, Cup Cup 1994 Parma, that's got to be effective, doesn't it? Just around sort of coming towards the back end of your career, finishing up, to score the winning goal in a European Cup final has got to be pretty special. Even if it's not quite the European Cup final.
Yeah, the fact Arsenal have only won a couple of European trophies, in the history. We were massive underdogs that night, weren't we, against a really good Parma side. They had Zola, Asprilla, Thomas Brolin, the Swede, who was a top player in his time, half of Italy's World Cup squad that night. And Wrighty was suspended, John Jensen was injured, Martin Keown failed the fitness test. So, yeah, we nobody fancied us. But, of course, we had the back four, the back five. So, once I'd scored, there was every chance that we might be able to see it out. So it was a brilliant night at the end. I mean, you wouldn't say it was the best game ever, but we were so well disciplined then. And George changed the shape. After we got knocked out of the European Cup by Benfica in '91, he thought we were too open, and he changed from the 4-4-2 to 4-3-3 in Europe. So we'd play 4-4-2 on a Saturday, and then Monday morning we'd be on the training ground just going through our shape for the game on the Wednesday, whatever, in Europe. And it worked. Obviously, it worked. We were more solid in midfield.
There's numerous highlights of that game, isn't there, Alan, of the back four with the hands up? Like it was just so automatic, wasn't it?
Yeah, they knew each other just inside out by that stage, didn't they? And still had a few years left in them. We were a little bit fortunate at times. Lee always says he don't know how he didn't concede a penalty. He ploughed into somebody and caught them halfway up the leg. There were a couple of marginal offside decisions. Dave Seaman pulled off a couple of great saves. So we rode our luck, but we saw it out, which is fantastic.
Over 100 goals for Arsenal, that being one of them, Alan. And a lot of those goals, looking back, has prompted in some quarters of Arsenal fan bases to compare yourself with one Oliver Giroud with another left foot. Do you see comparisons there?
Well, I was right-footed. People think I was left-footed, but I was. I think Arsene Wenger made that comparison when somebody asked him. So I'm not too disappointed to be compared with him when you look at his career and his career for France as well. I mean, his goal record is brilliant. It was sad when he left the Gunners, I thought, and he's shown at Chelsea what he's still got in him. But I'll say there
both
aren't so
scoring.
many like him and me. Maybe one or two coming back now, but there's always a place for a big centre forward, isn't there? Gotta be.
Yeah, absolutely got to be. We could probably do with one at Arsenal at the moment. If he keeps on playing Aubrey on the left, you could argue that we don't really have another top man. Certainly not one who's going to score on a regular basis. And you scored over 100 goals. It was for the Arsenal, so that's not too bad. Before we did say we wanted to touch a little bit on your broadcasting, sort of that next step in your career against and I guess your life. Before we did though, Andrew's got a quick fire, a little challenge for you. What we're going to do as part of this episode, we're going to give away a really lovely sort of Sabutio team print to one of our followers of the 1989 title winning side. And so what we'd love you to do is when Andrew fires the name of those individuals at you, just to give us sort of one or two words about how you would remember them or know them as, just a really quick fire, couple of words as an abiding memory of your time playing with them.
Keeping it clean, Alan, yeah? Right, so obviously John Lukic.
John Lukic, he nicked people's newspapers outside the hotel bedrooms.
Love it.
He's too tight to buy them.
Love it.
David O'Leary.
David. He would know when the chairman's wife's birthday was. He knew the club inside out. He was my first roommate, actually.
He knew other people's birthday as well. There wasn't a rumour, was it?
No.
Good stuff.
No, exactly.
Mr. Arsenal, Tony Adams.
Tone, shut up, Tone. We'd always be shouting in the dressing room beforehand. Wore some dodgy gear, but a top lad.
Steve Bold.
Oh, Baldy. Could drink like a fish, never got drunk, hollow legs, yeah.
Yeah, the old front post flick on.
Yeah, I scored some goals from that. Massively underrated, Baldy, massively.
Lee Dixon.
Lee, one of my close friends at the time, lived close by. He had a big Rottweiler, Schuler, but steady as they come. I mean, hardly ever had a bad game. Brilliant right back.
Nigel Winterburn.
Last on the training ground, first off it, had to get back to do the ironing. We always joked. But he was one of those. He was so left-footed, but who could get past him? Nobody.
Yeah. Richardson.
We used to call him Albert after Albert Tatlock. Loved him own Richo, but an integral part of that 89 team. Great experience from Everton. So he was important.
Mickey Thomas.
Mickey, yeah, stubborn as you like. He could sleep on a clothesline, but great lad. Yeah, one of the South London posse. He was a top lad.
Merce,
yeah, sat next to me for 8 years. Obviously loved to drink, loved to bet, but not a bad bone in his body. Merce, still the same today, has never changed.
So underrated as well. One unbelievable footballer.
Top man. Rocastle, bless him.
An absolute diamond, Rocky. He was a big friend of mine. We're still big friends with his family, Janet and the kids. Just a tragedy what happened to him.
That's it, Tom, isn't it? Is that it?
Well, I think there was someone up front. What would they say about you, do you think? If we asked one of them about you?
Oh, I don't know. They thought I was clever, that I'd know the answer to things. Ask Smudge, he'll know.
Pub quiz.
Pub quiz.
But, I'd hope it was all good. It was good.
That's brilliant. Really, really lovely insight there. As I say, we'll just take 5 minutes, if we may, just to talk about how did you get into the broadcasting? Because your career finishes. Lots of people go into management or stay close to the game in that respect. Obviously, you've gone into the media, and I'd just love to get your thoughts on how, because as much as football has changed, the world outside of it has changed far, far more ultimately. And that evolution of the Sky Sports use, I think often one of the reasons we touched on the 91 league title winning team being underrated. Obviously, that came just a season or 2 seasons before the introduction of the Premier League. So I think that's another reason it probably gets lost a little bit in the annals, because suddenly all this money's pumped in. You've got Sky, you've got the Premier League, and it's been a roller coaster ever since, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. Yeah, so much has changed, hasn't it? The money coming into the game. The first thing I remember is having our names on the back of our shirts and that, which was a big departure. But I mean, I would never have forecast a career in the media for myself. Certainly not in TV. I remember the first time I was asked to do some commentary by our lead match director, and I said, they don't want to listen to my whiny, brummy tones, for 90 minutes. Who needs that? But he encouraged me to have a go, and I've not looked back, so I've got to thank him for that. Tony Mills it was. But amazing, really, how things have developed. When I was a footballer, I always wanted to have a go at writing, and that's something I did straight away. I wrote for the Ham and High. Then the Evening Standard in my first season out, and then I started writing for the Telegraph. So I suppose that's where my education beforehand came into play. But it's been good to me, the media in my life after football, extremely good.
And you've done a Champions League final alongside the great Martin Tyler, right?
Yeah, I've done a couple. I did the one at Wembley between United and Barcelona. And Barcelona, I think that was their
special
best
Barca team.
I don't think I've seen a better performance in a Champions League final.
No, exactly, yeah. And then I did one in Berlin. It was Juventus Barcelona, was it? So that it's an honour to do those. Yeah, a real honour. And for the Telegraph, I've been to 4 World Cups, 4 European Championships. So from that point of view, it's been fantastic.
You noticed, right? You mentioned writing there, and I did have to say, I was going to say it offline, but I'll say anyway. You and I have met once before, Alan, properly for a couple of. So my father is really good friends with Alex Finn, and obviously a writer, a writer friend. And I remember you were doing a sort of doing a book signing with him in Waterstones or WH Smith somewhere, and I was dutifully helping, handing out leaflets, telling everyone to come into queues to see the great Alan Smith. So that was some 20 years ago now. But I knew I had to bring it up tonight at some point, and the writing was a nice little sideway into that. How do you? And it's impossible to guess, but we were fortunate enough to have Warren Barton, the ex-Newcastle player, on the pod a couple of weeks ago, and obviously he's over in the States now, living it up over there, and we obviously compared the spectacle of how they produce sports and broadcast sports, and they've moved off into the model of teams having their own TV rights, or certainly individual sports having their own team TV rights and showcasing every game there. You've obviously got the rumours at the moment of the European League. How do you see the way we watch football changing or evolving in the next few years? I know, like I said, it's impossible to guess, but how do you see that happening?
Well, I'd like to think it was kept evenly spread, the TV revenue, but I can't see that happening. Obviously, the big six are doing their best to earn a greater slice of the cake. You can understand it to a certain extent from their perspective, but the worst thing in the world would be if competition is diluted and, the same clubs are winning all the trophies every single year. But I don't know. I really don't know how it's going to go. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see clubs looking after their own, televised games and raking in the profits, the dividends in years to come. During my time after playing it, it's been Sky that have had the rights more often than not. Obviously, BT are involved. We've had 1 or 2 others that have come and gone. Whether now Amazon, the likes of Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, whatever, get involved in the next few years, we'll wait and see. Amazon have already dipped the toe in, haven't they?
Last year.
So you can see big changes in the next few years, whatever shape they may take. But, you just hope you keep that element of competition, because without that, it just becomes boring.
I think as well, it's Tom mentioned earlier about the inception of the Premier League, obviously in the early 90s, and how over that sort of 20-year period, like that football being a reflection of society as well, and how we've become more demanding as a consumer, and now how there's huge debates, aren't they, kicking off on Twitter about the price of these box office games and how outrageous it is. But I feel like we've created probably our own monster in some way of this demand to watch every match. There's nothing better. Well, not there's nothing better, but who didn't love going on to teletext and waiting for the page to turn for the Arsenal? I think we've lost that the soul of kind of fan consumer ship.
Waiting till match day.
Yeah.
I used to hate being away to West Ham or something like that because you'd be on the third page of CFAX, or Teletext, by the time it gets around, so you're used to being on page 1 as beginning of A, obviously. And actually, Alan, I can notice that's on your desk. You've got the old CFAX of the 89 win.
Can you see that? Yeah,
I can just see the Thomas 90+1. That's
I've got the cup. I've got the cup in the kitchen. I thought I've got to buy that. Yeah, no, the cup actually is Copenhagen, so I thought I'd have a little mixture. Yeah.
Amazing. I think you're right, Andrew, because I think ultimately, but I think maybe it speaks to what Alan spoke about earlier about people lose a little bit of connection with their club over the last 20, 30 years. And actually now they demand that connection in a different way. You've seen the spate of the fantastic documentaries. Obviously 89 was one of them, but now the modern ones of the All of Nothing or the Sunderland Till I Die, and actually try and give that like close insight. And now you're right, there's that demand that fans want to see every single match, don't they? Just means more gigs for you, Alan.
Well, we're not knocking it. I mean, there's a lot of tough times out there, but TV at the moment is very much something that people want to look at, isn't it? So hopefully that'll continue. I can't see that stopping in the near future.
Just not a £15 a head though. That's the problem, isn't it?
Well, yeah, no. I mean, for people with season tickets, it's a difficult one, isn't it? If you haven't got a season ticket and you want to watch the game, if you're prepared to stump up that, the Premier League, the clubs feel they've got to earn the income.
Yeah.
They're not going to give it away their product for nothing. It devalues it.
Yeah.
So.
And Tom and I always talk about this as well, is that how, we've never had, it's almost like fans feel that we've got the right to watch every game now when we've never had that before, I don't have the right to watch every single Premier League fixture, so
no,
I think, if you want to pay £15 to watch Burnley, West Brom, no disrespect to those clubs at all, as in, then pay it. If not, you have a choice to not pay it,
Yeah.
Watch match of the day, which is a bit like the cup final day. It's sort of dwindling from its significance, but for me, it's strange because it's such an important part of my life. Alan, I hope I don't mind speaking for Andrew here to say it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you this evening. For us as Arsenal fans, showing my age a little bit, I wasn't quite old enough to remember '89, but from the cups onwards, I was very much a watching fan and really enjoying every moment. And obviously, you formed a big part of those formative years. So for me, it's been a pleasure. So really appreciate it.
No, that's a pleasure for me as well. Good to speak to you two lads, and good luck with the podcast. Enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot, Alan.
Thank you very much.
All right, boys.
Really appreciate it.
All the best. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again to Alan there for that fantastic insight into his life on and off the pitch. You also heard from Tom there about our latest competition, the Subbuteo 89 print. For more details on how to enter, check out our Twitter page at HTO Football. If you've enjoyed this episode, give it a like and a share. It really helps the podcast. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.